I'm looking at a course that I've developed with a full grade center with all of the options that I want for this grade center. And I wanted to show this to you first before we develop our own organization. You'll notice, for instance, that I can see grades that are color-coded by whether they are A, B, C, D, or F. You can see if I go into my column organization, you can see I have all of my grades organized into units. For instance, I have a Start Here section, Module 1, I have Module 2, and you'll notice that all the grades for Module 2 are in this section, and that I have my grades in different categories here. In the end, you're going to want to do this. This is going to make your life easier, especially when it comes to calculating your grade at the end. The more you can do in organizing your course, the better off you're going to be. So let's start by taking a very unorganized grade book and turning it into an organized one. We're going to have to be a little bit more organized in this video because organizing grade columns requires a little bit of preparation in various parts of the grade book. And so we're going to look in particular at grading periods, grading schemas, grading color codes, categories, and column organization. Each one of these is going to be an option in the grade book, and we're going to set them up properly, and then we will deploy them in our grade book for a very organized set of grades that will make your life much easier when it comes to grading itself. I had to go back to a 2016 course to look at the grade book that was unorganized. This was before I started organizing my own grade books. And it's a good place to start because you'll see that with the sheer number of grades I had in this anatomy and physiology course, that it was easy to get lost in the grades simply because of its disorganization. And I'll show you that before we get started. So you can see, for instance, these are students that were in the class, and you can see lots of grades here. In fact, it's easier to see this if I use the column organization. Let's go to the column organization. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to look at the different grades. So these are all the different grades. You'll notice that I have a lot of grades next to each other. Now, some of them are in a test category, some of them are an assignment, and then some of them, as I go down, actually, well, I take that back. There are a few that are calculated grades, but you'll see that some of them are in categories, but these are default. Whenever I made these exams, for instance, I made them as a test, and so it defaulted the category here. Now, initially this may not seem to be a problem, but if you think ahead, this might be a problem for you. If you, for instance, have a policy where you drop a lab quiz or you drop an exam, well, you need to be able to do that later when you're doing grades by selecting all of the members of a particular category and having it automatically drop one of those. So currently, if I wanted to drop the lowest quote-unquote test, then it would look at all of the things that have a test category, like lab quizzes and safety quizzes, and if I go down, the video quizzes and the unit quizzes, as well as the exams, and it would take all of those and only drop the lowest one of all of them. But if I wanted it to drop one of the 5 exams, then I need to have a different category for these exams, or alternatively, a different category for the other things in my grades. So we're going to need to organize this by first grading period. We're going to break up the grades into discrete units. Then we're going to work on the categories and look at how we organize them by category, as well as looking at color codes and the grading scheme that we can set for our course. So let's go back, getting a little ahead of ourselves. What we're going to do is we're going to work through the first 4 options here under Manage, and then go down to Column Organization at the end. We're not going to worry about Smart Views. This is something that is a little bit more advanced, and it's definitely beyond our current approach, where we just want to get things set up and organized in a hurry. So start with grading periods. Alright, something about grading periods. Grading periods help you break up your course into discrete units. You can do this based on content, you can do this based on dates, doesn't matter, however you want to set it up. I personally have my course divided into 5 units, and so I like to break all of the material up into those 5 units. Although I might have a couple more grading periods, including maybe a grade section as well as a start here section, because in my start here orientation I often will have a syllabus quiz and an introduce yourself discussion. I want those separate from the rest of my modules. So to do this, I'm going to create a grading period. I'm going to create it. In this case, I'm just going to make the module ones, or unit. I'm just going to do units here. Unit 1, I might describe that unit. Students will not see this. This is entirely for you. This is for your own organization, so I need to re-emphasize that. Students will not see these grading periods or this organization. This is entirely for you to help organize yourself in the grade book so that it makes it a lot easier in the end to figure out grades. Alright, at this point I can select either no dates, or I can basically say everything that's due within a certain range of date, throw that into this unit. I don't like to do that. You can set it physically and it's pretty quick. And then also I can associate this grading period with all columns that have a due date within this date range by checking this box. Alright, those are things that I tend to leave open, or I don't check them, but certainly would be up to you to do that. Alright, I'm going to hit submit. It's going to create a grading period. Now nothing's happened yet. We're going to have to go to column organization to set those grading periods. But let's go ahead and create one more, just again to show us how it's done. I'm going to click on create grading period. I'm going to type in unit 2, and I'm going to leave all of the default settings. I'm going to hit submit. I'm going to pause for a moment, and then I'm going to come back, and you will have all of the grading periods that I want in this course. Okay, I'm back, and I have the grading periods that I want in this course. I've got grades and units 1 through 5. Okay, now it's time for us to start organizing our grades into these grading periods. Let's click OK. It's going to take us back to our grades. We're going to now go to column organization. We're going to keep coming back to this column organization. It's really kind of a central hub of this particular video, and of course of your organization in your grade book. So column organization. Alright, now I see that I've got these now units or these grading periods made. Now nothing's in them yet because everything else is still in what's considered to be not in a grading period. We're going to start putting stuff in that grading period. So let's start with let's see where the grades went here. Grades are at the bottom. Now I can also move these things around. So I can move my organization around. I want grades at the top of this list. I'm going to click on this and just move it up. Okay, I've got it organized. We got units 1 through 5 in order. Alright, I want my weighted total. Now I don't usually use weighted total, but whatever your grade columns are. So in this case I have a total grade in points, I have a percent grade, I have a letter grade, and a weighted total, and I want all of those in my grade. Well, I've clicked on them. I'm going to go down all the way to the bottom, or I could go to the top, and I'm going to change grading period. I'm going to change it to grades. Now if you had done this before, making those grading periods, those would not appear. I'm going to click on grades, and now when I go up, I'm going to go all the way to the top. There they are. They have now been put into this folder-like structure under grades, and I can do that with my other things here. So for instance, exam 1, and let's look down here, lab quiz 1, and I think 2 and 3 are all in unit 1. Let's see if I go down. I know there's some other things in here. Lab reports 1, 2, and 3 also go in unit 1. Pre-lab 2 and 3 go in unit 1. And video quiz 1.4, 1.2, 1.1, 1.5, 1.3, those are all in unit 1. Okay, so at this point I would go click unit 1, change grading period to unit 1. Let's go up and look. Let's see what it looks like. And there we have it. I have all of my unit 1 materials inside of my folder-like structure of Unit 1. I'm going to hit Submit at this point, and I'm going to show you that it doesn't actually affect how your gradebook looks except for the order of these particular columns. So let's hit Submit. So students or you will not see this organization even when you're looking at the full grade center, but it does change the order of your columns. So you can see here are the first 4 that belong in the grades there at the front, and I think they were before anyway. But now if I go to the next set of, I'm going to click here and use my arrow keys to move. If I look at the next set of grades, they're all from that Unit 1. If I go back to column organization, I can do even more organization within Unit 1. I can decide, for instance, to move things around by clicking on these crosses and moving them. Let's say I want Exam 1 at the bottom because it's the last thing they do in this unit. I want the labs to go towards the bottom. Again, this is all preferences, but keep in mind that by doing this, not only do you see this organization in the columns, but this will also be seen by the students. When they click on My Grades, they will see their grades in this order. Even if they don't see the unit organization, they will see the grades in this order. And so doing this organization can be very useful, again, really for you and your organization, but also for the students. This way they're not seeing Exam 1 after Exam 3, for instance, in their columns and be very confusing. This is a good way to organize what they see and what you see. Okay, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to add the other pieces of these grades into the different units, and so we'll come back and look at these units and see what they look like. Okay, I'm back. And you can see now that I have moved materials into each of the unit grading periods, and I may still need to move things around within a particular grading period, but you can already see how this is going to add organization to my grades. It's going to make it easier for me to look for things and to sort through things, but it's also going to make it easier for the student. Okay, we're going to hit Submit, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the grading schemas. Now, this is one in particular if you want to add a letter grade. So for instance, if I come back out of this, I'm going to go to the front. You'll notice, for instance, that I've assigned a letter grade here. Now, it's easy to do that if I just wanted to enter a B or an A or a C, but if I have a lot of students, I can actually calculate this, and let's show you how to do that. First, I need to create a grading scheme. I'm going to click on grading scheme. There's a default one, a letter grading scheme here. And it's default. If I'm going to edit it, I'm going to hit the drop down menu. I'm going to edit it. I can add other schemes as well. And if I go down, it's showing you the breakout of the different grades. So you can change this. Let's say that your grading scheme is slightly different from this. This is basically everything from an 89.5 to 100 is an A. Everything greater than a 79.5 to a 90 is a B, and so on. I can go and change these numbers if I need to. Once you're done, you can assign to the letter here. You can hit Submit. And you've now established what is an A, what is a B, what is a C, and so forth based on percentage. Okay, so let's hit OK. And then when I go, I can do a total column, for instance, and I can create that and then turn that into a letter grade. So let's say that I want to, I'm gonna actually view this letter grade column. I'm going to edit this column information and show you what I did. This was a total column, so you can see here this was a total column that I created. I named it letter grade, and then I used the primary display as the letter. And so what it's doing is it's taking your percentage of total points that they have, turning it into a letter grade based on that total points. And they can see that, you can see that it's in the grading period here. I can change what is going into this. I can change what columns are going into this grade as well. We're going to get to some of this calculation at the very last video, how we create these calculated grades, but you get the idea. I've created a letter grade column that's based on the grading scheme that I used. Okay, but I also like to visually see how my students are doing. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to just peruse these grades and get a good idea of how they're doing. So I can do this visually as well, and I can do that by going to grading color codes. Let's click on it. First, we're going to enable, so this is probably checked off by default. We'll check it on. We're going to enable those codes, and we're going to create color code criteria. So for instance, I can create a criteria for grading ranges. Now, you can also change colors up here. For instance, if you want to color a cell based on the fact that it needs grading, you can change that color. I don't do that because there's often an icon that shows up for things that need grading or things that are in progress, so I don't really feel the need to change the colors of that. But I do like to change the color of their grades so that I know how they're doing. So for instance, in this case, I can add a color that any grade that is a percentage of 89.5 or better, so it's more than or equal to, so I have different options here. I can create criteria based off these options, that I'm going to turn that into a green color. I think I have to go and hit apply. Okay, and so I can even change the text color too, but that's not particularly necessary. I'm going to add another criteria. And in this case, I'm going to choose between, because a B, or if I want to color the B, first of all, I like the color of a blue color for the B. I tend to use green for A, B for blue, yellow for C, orange for D, and red for F. It's my little color rainbow, but of course that's completely based on your own personal preferences. But in this case, I want all the grades that are between 79.4 and let's see, 89.5. You have to be careful with these little statements here between, because it literally will not take 79.4 exactly. It'll take everything greater than 79.4 and everything less than 89.5 as your between scores. We're going to add a couple more criteria. I'm going to pause here for a moment and show you the final result of the criteria that I'm going to add. I'm back, and I did have to make a small correction. It did not like actually having the numbers here the same, so I had to change this from 89.5 to 89.49 just so that it wasn't this overlapping numbers here. So you'll notice, for instance, that my yellow color for C is between 69.5 and 79.49, and for B it's between 79.5 and 89.49. That way these numbers don't overlap each other. But at the very last one I have a less than, so everything less than 59.5% is going to show up red. And so those are my color schemes. Again, you can set this up however you want. You can add a larger number or smaller number of color schemes here. I like this one. It's pretty consistent for me, and I can hit submit. And now you can see that my grades are color coded. Now this also shows up for the students. The students can also see these color codes in their grades, although it's not always consistent. That not all grades show this in some cases, but they can also see these color codes, so it's good for them to visualize this as well. And so you can see as I'm scrolling through that without knowing the numbers, I can initially see that there are maybe particular issues for a particular student, and just get a general sense of how the class is doing overall. For instance, in this quiz, not so good. Where this quiz, it's a little, this report's a little split. I can get a sense of the class visually this way. So color codes are a great way to visualize the information that you have, and a great way to organize yourself in your grades and to get a quick view of how your students are doing. Okay, now we want to move on to categories. And so we noticed when we went over to column organization and we looked at our units, we have, for instance, in Unit 1, we have lab reports that are shown up as assignments. I have pre-lab reports that are assignments. I have video quizzes that are tests. I have lab quizzes that are tests, and I have exams that are tests. And so what I want to do is I now want to create more categories so that I can kind of differentiate these different types of activities inside of Blackboard. So let's hit cancel. We're going to now go to categories. And these are the default categories. So these are the ones that Blackboard puts in here, and you cannot delete them. You can ignore them though. You can create your own categories and put everything in it. And you can currently see all of the things that are currently categorized as an assignment and all of those things that are currently categorized as the test. Now you can change any of these to these categories that are here, but of course it's not really appropriate for any of these assessments and grades. So we're going to create categories. I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Category. I'm going to create one of them that's going to be Lab Quizzes or Lab Quiz. I can describe it, but again, this is not for the students, this is for you. I'm going to hit Submit. And you can now, as I scroll down, see that there's a lab quiz. Now, currently there's nothing in it, and I can delete this if I wanted to. But I am going to first make a number of categories, and then I'm going to go put the various types of things in their correct categories. So I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'm going to add my other categories. Okay, you can see now that I have added 4 categories: lab quizzes, lab reports, pre-lab report, and video quizzes. This is going to help me pull out the quizzes out of the test category so that I'm only using test as a category for my exams. And again, this is going to be useful at the very end when I'm calculating grades, when I have everything sorted out. So I've got these categories here that I can use. I'm going to hit OK. I'm now going to go back to my central hub for the grade center, and that's the column organization. And the process of doing that's pretty easy. Now that I've got the categories made, I can go here. So lab reports. Let's just click on all lab reports. Unfortunately, there's not a way to select everything. You do have to go and individually select everything that you need to change or delete or move. So I'm just going to go through each one of these units, click on lab reports. And we're doing this the long way for now. Well, there's no short way except for this video editing. But let's look at the, now that I've got all of them clicked on, I'm going to go down to the bottom, or I can do it this at the top too. I'm going to change category now to lab report. So this was not here before. Click on lab report, and you can see that it is now turned into a lab report. Now don't hit cancel at this point, otherwise you'll lose all of your changes. So this is a time to do all of the other things as well. So I'm going to go into, for instance, in all of my quizzes, and I'm going to turn those into a quiz information. So I think I have a category for quizzes. Let's check. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I have lab quizzes. So I'm going to have to go back and make a new category for unit quizzes because I forgot to add that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause. I'm going to make a new category for quiz. We're going to come back, and I'm going to be moving things into those categories so that you see what the final result is. I didn't actually have to go and add another category because it's been a while since I've used this particular course, and so I forgot that my unit quizzes were my video quizzes, so I was able to turn them all into video quizzes. So let's take a look at what it looks like now. So here's Unit 1, for instance, and I can see that my lab reports are labeled as lab reports. My video quizzes are video quizzes. I have a lab quiz, I have an assignment, and I have a test in the form of an exam. And so each one of my units is now organized. And again, this is going to play a big role when I actually go to create my grades. It also, again, and I know why I am beating a dead horse here, it organizes it for you, and it organizes it ultimately for your students, as it is easier for you to navigate your grade center, especially if you have a lot of grades. So I've done my organization, I have created my categories, I have assigned the various elements in my course to those categories, and I'm going to now hit submit. Alright, so at this point then, as I look at my tools, I can create grading periods to help organize my grades into units, in modules, into time periods, into whatever it is that you want. Treat it as an organizational tool to break up your grades so that they're easier to manage. Then I created a grading scheme, or I modified the grading scheme to reflect the letter grades and how they might be calculated. I then created color codes so that I can visually see how my students are doing in each one of the assignments or exams. And then I created categories to sort all of the materials into those categories, so that when I go to the column organization and I need to find something, or I need to move something around, or I need to look at points, I can do so very easily because it's now organized. So a few things I want to show you also while I'm here before we leave the column organization is not only do I see what the name of the assignment or quiz or exam is, but I see what grading period it's in. This is in Unit 1. I see its category. I can also see the due date that I've set for this. You can see again this was a 2016 course and the date it was created. This due date is more important here because it could also give you a quick indication that, oh, I have the wrong due date for this particular material, and also tells you how many points it's worth. So this will help you keep track of things like mistaken points associated with a quiz or an assignment. So this is a good quick way to check things here in the column organization. So your grading center, while it is where all of your grades are and it is where you will do all of your calculations, your column organization tool is where you're going to be able to see all of that organized. And so hopefully this video will help you organize your grades, get them into a way that you can visualize them and think about them in a more organized fashion, and it should improve your ability to administer grades within your own Blackboard course. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to talking to you in the next lesson.